Hello, Martin Roberts here with another property market overview. It's not everything that's going on, but it's my spin on what is. Make sure you like this video, make sure you subscribe to Martin Roberts Property Tidbits, which is my YouTube channel, where there's lots more information, from how to buy property at auction, info for first time buyers, DIY projects for adults and kids, and so much more, and it's free. What's stopping you, for goodness sake? So anyway, here we are. It is the beginning of September, well-ish, it's 5th of September or so. Wow, is September already? Good. Anyway, here we are. Kids are back at school. Well, I hope your kids are, if you've got kids. And what's happening in the property market? Well, interestingly enough, we are seeing the continuation of all this positive kind of stuff, right? I mean, all the figures, they're making the front pages saying how property prices are soaring. Certainly in most parts of the country, not so much London and the southeast. I think that's possibly a reflection of the fact that people are taking stock of what it is that's important in where they live, and perhaps being right by where you work is no longer as critical as it was. There was a thing called commutability value, which was basically houses which were within easy commuter distance of big conurbations, your Birminghams, your Londons, your Manchesters, whatever, would have a value attached to them based on the fact that they had easy access to those places. So traditionally, London properties close to one of the further out tube lines or a mainline train station would have naturally commanded higher prices, easy access to road links, etc. But we have seen, as you will have realised by now, quite a shift in general thoughts about what's important in life, and a shift, I believe, also in employers' attitude towards workers, and the fact that actually workers can be a lot more productive, or at least as productive, from home. Now, this, I believe, wouldn't have been a shift, or it perhaps would have been a shift that would have taken years and years and years and years. And those people who worked from home, I think there probably would have still been a bit of a stigma that, in fact, they were sitting at home watching daytime TV, God forbid, and not actually working hard. That's all changed. And I think the stigma of working from home now is pretty much non-existent, right? So this whole commutability factor has changed, and this commutability value. So if one of the big reasons for buying a house was that it had easy access to all those commutable factors, then that's probably gone out the window. Paralleling that are people realising that they probably need more space. They want extra rooms that they can perhaps have a home office in, garden space. We're seeing all these things becoming increasingly valuable, and certainly properties with those desirable things, the price of them is certainly at an all-time high. We are seeing figures produced by the likes of Halifax and the Land Registry saying that house price increases year on year are at record levels. So wow, what does this mean in the short term? If you're looking for somewhere, you might have to pay more. Obviously that's going to be possibly offset by the fact that you've still got the stamp duty threshold being raised to £500,000, which if you're buying a £500,000 house saves you about 15 grand in stamp duty. So maybe there's an offset against that, but I imagine that there's kind of houses up to that value have factored in that into the pricing. At the end of the day, it goes dark, as somebody wants to tell me. At the end of the day, it's really important that you remember why you're buying a house, okay? And what is the reasons for you wanting to live there. And I think, again, if you view property as a medium to long-term investment, then thinking that you are maybe paying too much or that you could get it cheaper in the future is probably not the way you should necessarily be thinking. If you need this, if you want to change your lifestyle, if you want to swap your city centre flat for a place with space around it that the kids can play out or whatever, then I think you need to base your decisions not on what the market might or might not do, but on your own personal factors, and don't sweat the numbers too much, because nobody really knows what's going to happen. And, as we approach the time when furloughs are starting to end and the global economy is still teetering in a state of uncertainty, I think it would be realistic to prepare ourselves for, some kind of effect on the property market. Now, I've always been pretty bullish, going through furlough and coming out the other side. I think I felt that what's happened would happen, that there has been a pent-up demand and all that kind of stuff. Now, what's going to happen if the global economy, suffers badly, if unemployment rates go through the roof, if the UK economy gets really badly affected, then I don't see how the property market can be completely isolated from that. So short term, medium term, we may well see some corrections in prices and movement perhaps, because getting hold of mortgages, I don't think is going to get any easier. I think, in fact, the absolute opposite. If you've applied for a mortgage recently, a lot of things since the mortgage market review a few years ago have to be taken into consideration. Your affordability, which is quite right. The mortgage providers wants to know that in all circumstances you will be able to afford that mortgage. And obviously with uncertainty comes the potential for an inability to pay a mortgage. So I think you might find that the mortgage providers want a bit, more assurance that your job is secure, which if it isn't, is going to be really difficult to provide. So I do see or foresee a problem in terms of mortgages in the medium term, and of course that has got to have an effect on house sales volumes. But you come back to the points I've gone over and over again. I still believe that houses are such a great thing to invest in. If you're investing in a property with a view to renting it out, huge demand for rental continues, and the numbers are stacking up. You're getting those yields. You're providing yourself a new form of income, maybe protecting yourself in the process by giving yourself an alternative way of generating funds. It doesn't have to be your primary source, but it's always good to have something to fall back on. So perhaps investing in property can be the thing to do, which is why I run my property training courses. And you can find out about those at martinrobertspropertyeducation.com, where we try and take you through the whole process, of investing in property rather than just buying a house to live in, which is obviously a completely different thing. So overall, it's bullish at the moment, and I'm glad to see that. And let's just watch this space in terms of what happens in the coming month or so. Bit of other news that I picked up: the Council of, it's absolutely right, I wrote it down, Competition and Market Authority. That's it. The Competition and Market Authority, the CMA, have actually ruled against some major house builders in a way that I think a lot of people will be very, very relieved about. There was a situation which has been happening where new build properties have been sold with leasehold. Leasehold, as in you don't own the land that the property sits on. And normally leasehold properties, that's okay. A lot of flats are leasehold. We're used to leaseholds in the country. But you wouldn't necessarily think new build properties were going to be offered as leasehold. And it would seem, or at the face of it, that the intentions of doing this were not entirely at the interest of the person who was buying. In fact, possibly not at all, because there were clauses in people's leasehold agreements, which, to be fair, I think their solicitors should have pointed out to them, which said that their leasehold payment, and bear in mind if you have a property, you have to pay yearly or 5 yearly or whatever it might be, to the leaseholder for the right to have your house sitting on that land. And in some cases it's a few quid a year. In other cases it's a significant amount of money. And what seems to have happened is that the leasehold amounts that were paid that had to be paid if you bought one of these properties was reasonably significant. But more importantly, there was a clause in the contracts which said that the leasehold would double every 5 years. And it doesn't take long to figure out that that's going to get really expensive. So let's say the lease was set at £2,000 when you bought it, a year. That's quite a lot of money, but you know, you can maybe live with that. But after 5 years, that doubles to £4,000 a year. And worse than that, in 5 years' time, that doubles to £8,000, and then £16,000 a year, and then £32,000 a year. Soon it becomes ridiculous, with seemingly no capping. And the knock-on effect of this was that these new build houses, in some instances, were very difficult to sell, and the poor people who bought them were almost trapped in a totally terrible situation. Anyway, the Competitions and Markets Authority have stepped in, and it looks like they are going to take action against the house builders to try and readdress this issue, to try and help out the people who've been effectively trapped in this dreadful situation. And I think most people would say that is a fair and a reasonable thing to do. So a bit of good news to finish off with. Make sure that you like this video, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel for more of these things, and I'll be back with another property market review in a few weeks' time.